So the first thing that we did when we decided to start Savage Worlds, of course, with any RPG, is that we all made characters. The main characters that we play as, my own character I'm going to get to, but first I'm going to tell you about the rest of the table. We have one guy who is basically the commander for my character, and he is an analog to Cobra Commander from the old 80s cartoons. Except instead of Cobra, it's Scorpion. And his thing is that he is really freaking rich, has lots and lots of guns and equipment. He bought us a super lair so that we have this massive crab underneath the ocean. And the story behind why it's a crab instead of a scorpion is that when we ordered the lair to be a giant scorpion, apparently they got the factory order wrong. So it's a giant crab, and it wanders around underneath the ocean around Star City, which is the place that everything happens in the campaign that we're playing. Oh, and if I didn't get to that exactly, we're playing Necessary Evil, which is a campaign in Savage Worlds that revolves around superheroes and supervillains. And in our case, well, the reason it's called Necessary Evil is we play the villains. We are not the heroes of this story. Well, to a point. I mean, well, I'll get around to that later. First, character introductions. Let's get that out of the way. The other persons who are in our crew include Mr. Smith, an older gentleman who has super cancer and is possibly going to die at any given time that we play the game, decided entirely upon fate. He transforms himself into all kinds of animals: mystical dragons, great griffins, ridiculous giant gorillas, all kinds of stuff. Pretty much anything that he can imagine, he can transform himself into. And the way that works in the game is he basically turns into any monster in the game that is in the book, and he can steal their abilities by pouring his points into that. We also have Blindside, who is basically an analog to Deadshot, or at least he was originally supposed to have been, except that his player tends to gravitate much more towards using explosions than actually shooting them. In fact, he's blown more things up than he has shot by far, in a very wide margin. Our other buddy, I can't remember his character name. I'm going to have to ask him come the next week, because I keep forgetting his character name. But he's basically a sniper. He's got heavy armor, and he does actually shoot things all the time, which is good, because he's actually supposed to shoot things, and that is what we want from him. Also part of our party is Machiavelli, who is this dude who basically goes through and he controls people with his mind. He can influence them and sway them to do whatever it is that we need them to do, whether it be give us information or other amusing things like, just jump off that car and kill yourself, which happened later on in the campaign at a certain point. And finally, we're going to get around to my character, which is Concho the Mighty Robot, which is spelled K4NCH0. My robot character is a construct. He's able to manipulate his form and shape change because he has metal manipulation as an altered form. He's basically kind of like a terrible cross between the T-1000 and Conti from Furikuri, which is like the robot with the television for a face. That's where I got a lot of his design from, was from Conti, but like he's more like the T-1000 in that like he's made of like liquid metal, and he gets splattered and reconstitutes himself when he gets damaged and all kinds of stuff like that. So anyways, that would be the character introductions out of the way. So let's get to what actually happened in our first session. In our first session, all of our characters had been captured originally because we decided that, the idea was that we went in very loud and we got captured by the Vizori, which are the aliens that have mostly taken over the world in this setting. The way that they did it was by pretending to be friends of Earth when other aliens attacked. And then after they gained everybody's trust, they had a gigantic meeting of all the superheroes and world leaders and everything like that. And when they all came together, the Vizori were basically like, surprise, those guys that were attacking you were actually our soldiers all along. And then they lasered everybody in the face. Superheroes, all the presidents, all the prime ministers, everything just got completely obliterated by these alien assholes. And so the only thing that was actually left was the supervillains, because of course they weren't invited to celebrate with the Vizori because, you know, they're kind of assholes. They're supervillains. They're not people that people want to celebrate with. And therefore they didn't actually kill the supervillains, whom were now working in resistance against the Vizori for the purposes of people of Earth, and also of course so that they can kind of, you know, make profit and take over for themselves. So anyways, our entire group was captured. We were being transported via airlift, and it was determined that our group had been raiding a baked bean factory because, you know, with the Vizori rule and all, it's tough to get food. So we wanted the beans, and we got caught with our hands in the bean jar. And since we got caught with our hands in the bean jar, we were being transported in this helicopter or plane type thing, and while it is en route of transporting us to you know, super jail prison thing that we were gonna get stuck in, like just bam, all of a sudden there's shaking outside, there's all kinds of loud noises and explosions, and these robots, which are basically called destructor bots or something like that, because they're made by this guy called Dr. Destruction, who's like an analog to Dr. Doom, right? And these Doom bots. Sorry about that. There was a cut that I didn't intend to make because, like I said, mistakes will happen, and I accidentally leaned my hand against the back button on my phone. Anyways, back to the Doom bots. So the Doom bots go through and they flood into the cabin where we are, and they put like these charges on the restraints that are on us and the restrainer bolts that are basically draining us of our superpowers so that we can't escape or use our abilities to any sort. And they show us a screen with Dr. Destruction's face, and he's like, you have a choice. You can, and I really don't care either way. You can join us or you can die, basically, is the message that he gave to us. So each of our characters, basically, we're like, okay, yeah, we'll help you. Because if we didn't say that we would help him, metagame, the game master had already basically told us, if you don't say yes to helping him, he's just going to kill you. And technically, you know, it was pretty obvious that he would have killed us, because after we said yes, basically, the floor is blown out of the plane, helicopter underneath us, and we all just start falling through the air while he's asking us this. I should reiterate that he didn't actually ask us until the floor had been blown out and we were falling. So as we're falling to our certain doom is when we were supposed to answer, you know, yes or no if we're going to help this guy. So we, of course, all say yes. And then we're pretty much left just falling towards the prison that we were being transported towards anyways. And we are supposed to go through and find a safe way to land. So, let's see here. Blindside and our other buddy, because Machiavelli wasn't with us yet. He doesn't get introduced until a little later in the story, because he doesn't join the campaign until another episode. But we'll get there. Anyways, Blindside and our other buddy, who is an actual sniper, not a guy who blows everything up, get taken down very carefully to the prison yard by Mr. Smith, who transforms himself into this massive dragon and just, you know, floats them down nice and safe. And my character, Concho, turns himself into a freaking tank and basically gets his commander to crawl inside. Well, it's, to be really specific, it's kind of a van/tank, and it's shaped like a scorpion, and it's really pretty amazing and cool. So anyways, transform into that so that as we land, I absorb the impact of our landing, and prevent him from taking any damage. And we're right there in the middle of the prison yard. We immediately go to work fighting with the guards. My character goes through and like runs 2 or 3 of them over, like smashing them into the wall, shoots another couple guys with like his Gatling gun tail, because it has been determined that one of the weapons that I made in the vehicle form is a literal Gatling gun, which is all because of video that Catlock shared with me, wherein in Nexter's laboratory, this guy messing around with Kerbal Space Program goes through and makes ridiculous iterations of miniguns made out of miniguns with more miniguns and so on and so forth. It's ridiculous. I'll put a link to that video in the description so that you can get an idea of where I got the terrible idea from. But anyways, we go through, we get ourselves into the prison complex, we beat up the main guards, we get further into the facility, we find this room where there's just like a normal human guy in a Vizori watching over like the main parts of the prison. And our commander basically goes over to the door and he's like, open the door now and we will not kill you, you know. And at first they don't open the door because they're not convinced by him. My character takes a laser sword, which is hot and violent pink, and slams it into the door, and he just like starts very slowly opening the door open. And when he's about halfway finished, the guys inside just press the button to let us inside. We go in, we hack the computers inside of that area, and after hacking the computers, we discover where where the target is that we were told to get for Dr. Destruction is. Because one of the things that Dr. Destruction told us was that he wanted this guy, I can't remember the dude's name, but he wanted this guy retrieved for him. And he also gave us these escape pod summoning button thingies, which we took with us. And so we located where the guy was, we found the jail, and we made our ways in there with very little resistance. And we found several other villains that we had story-wise worked with before. But of course, you know, they were just made-up characters by the GM. And we had a choice because there were like 5 characters and there were only 9 escape pods. And each pod could only hold 1 person. So, because of that, we had to choose from 3 people who would join our party from that jailbreak. So from that, we gained 3 more characters. One of them is Cognis, who is an octopus man, and he's like really tech savvy and amazing with engineering and computers and all kinds of stuff. And our GM would use like this really weird arm flailing motion whenever he's talking about how he's moving from place to place with his multiple tentacles because he's an octopus dude and all this stuff. So he was one of our first picks. After that, we brought along a sorcerer named Grigori, who's like kind of Rasputin-like and stuff, and he like goes around with his like little mystic charms and stuff. And last but not least, we brought along with us this dude called the Fiddler, who's kind of a bard-ish character, and he kind of has the ability to walk on walls. He plays his fiddle a lot. He almost never actually physically fights with people, but he's really, really hard to hit. And when characters try to do things to him, just bad stuff happens to them if they roll 1s in the game. So anyways, we got our new party characters. We all got together, put them into the escape pods, and we made our way the hell out of there. And that is the end of our escape, our first episode. So stay tuned for the next.